This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back. This is Ken Shoulders number 31, I believe. And in talking about Ken Shoulders, we need to talk about John Hutchison as well. And here's a picture of John Hutchison in the hat and Ken Shoulders together. They were really good friends, very, very good friends. And what's really cool is yesterday I had direct contact with John Hutchison, and because I'm going to be going on a show with him in the near future. And I let him know the relationship between Ken Shoulders and Chris Beskar because they had this business relationship. And nobody knew this until I started talking about Stavati. So John didn't know. And when he watched a bunch of the clips and whatever, he came back and he said, I think he emailed me back and he said, thank you lots, is what he said. It was kind of funny. And then the other thing that I found out yesterday too, excuse me, which is really cool, is John's dog's name is EVO, which is pretty interesting. So, because they were John was on live on the show that I'm going to be on coming up, and Nancy was kind of in the background, and a couple times you could hear them call the dog, and they called the dog EVO, and I was like, what? And then I realized that's the dog's name. So very cool. So today we're going to go through. This will probably be the first of maybe three different ones that we do on John Hutchison. And I have a whole bunch of stuff that I printed off years and years ago. And so I'm just going to start reading through it. There's different things. So the Hutchison effect, which is probably the most famous anti-gravity effect in the world, um, probably no one more famous than John Hutchison when it comes to all of this stuff. So the Hutchison effect, a lift and disruption system, George D. Hathaway, and this is reprinted from New Energy Technology, published by the Planetary Association for Clean Energy in 1990, from page 77 to 103. The following may shed light on a most unusual phenomenon, which we have called the Hutchison effect. It is a very strange arrangement of technologies, including those of Nikola Tesla and Robert Van de Graaff. This is a topic that is very conductive to wandering because it brings all in all of the most amazing kinds of effects that one would love to have in their basement, such as a material levitating and floating around, being able to break steel bars without the use of your bare hands, and all sorts of other weird and wonderful things. I think it's Ferros
Pharaoh,
technology.
Pharaohs,
Yeah,
Pharaohs.
Ferro Technology Limited was a company formed by myself and a gentleman by the name of Alexander uh, Pizarro.
Pizarro, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, um, who you may recall made a presentation at the 1983 Second International Symposium on Non-Conventional Energy Technology in Atlanta. Alex talked about one of his pet projects, which was an oil and gas discovery by novel means. In 1990, we formed this company.
1980,
Oh, sorry,
1980.
yeah, 1980. We formed this small company to try to promote um, what then what what we then
And
called
then
the
was
Hutchison
called.
effect. Yeah, what we then called the Hutchison effect. We're also termed. We're also termed in our. We also
We also termed it in our earlier presentations.
Yeah, LADS, or the lift and disruption system. The following series of graphs were created in 1984 to present to various parties interested in funding this technology. The first graph indicates the topic covered in these presentations. Um, LA, LADS is capable of inducing lift and translation into bodies of any material. and that's listed over here as propulsive. Severely disrupting molecular bonds in any material, resulting in catastrophic disruptive fracturing, and that's in the energetic section, as the rest of this is. Causing controlled plastic deformation in metals, creating unusual aurora-like lighting effects in mid-air, inducing apparent large-scale magnetic monopoles in metals. That's a golden nugget right there, because we've talked about the monopole and how important it is to everything at the very base levels. Causing changes in chemical composition of metals and other long-range effects, all at low power and at a distance. Then the lift and disruption system, or the Hutchinson effect, is divided primarily into two categories of phenomena: propulsive and energetic. The system is capable of inducing lift and translation into bodies of any material. That means it will propel bodies upwards, and it will also move them sideways. There are actually four kinds of trajectories which are capable of being produced, and I'll explain these shortly. It also has very strange energetic properties, including severely disrupting intermolecular bonds in any material, resulting in catastrophic and disruptive fracturing, samples of which are described here. And there's many of them on the internet and on Matthew's channel, which that's the show that I'm going to be going on with John in the future here. He even levitated an 80-pound cannonball. It is also capable of causing controlled plastic deformation in metals, creating unusual aurora-like lighting effects in midair, causing changes in chemical composition of metals. It varies the distribution of the chemical content, and other long-range effects at distances up to around 80 feet, 24 meters. That's wild. Around away from the central core of the apparatus, all at low power and at distance. And then it says, introduction history, unprecedented activity from a single system. On the other side, the visual evidence, film stills, overview of, I can't read that word, primitive original lab, true system with many interrelated parts, and then developed totally fortuitously from experimentation with early AC and static machines. This is really important. Basically, what they're saying there, the static machines provide like the DC, and then the AC gets put on top of that. That's called bootstrapping, and that is a super, super powerful thing that T.T. Brown did originally, and probably Nikola Tesla was involved with it. Based on idea of inducing swirl or rotation into EM fields. Chip's going to love that one because it is all about that. It's all about the rotation, but also the precession of the rotation is most important. Early evidence of power of LADS, phase and development of program by Pharos Technologies, uh, unprecedentability of LADS.
Unprecedented. Is that right?
It says unprecedented ability of LADS in early trials. Reestablish of LADS lab under phase 1 program. Success of reconstructing LADS lab in new environment. And then on the other side, I read some
LDS means LADS means.
Lift and disruption system.
Okay.
Overview of that word I couldn't read. Primitive original lab, state of original setup, poor connections, hand-wound coils, etc. Lack of instrumentation. Difference between original and latest laboratories. Apparently, the effects were best in the original laboratory. Basement of house LADS uh, transfer of momentum, maybe of I can't read that part. Best lift episodes in earlier basement lab, like I'd said. Poor photographic record in earlier trials. Um, Highlighted something of aperture field coils of. It's too bad I can't read this. This was printed off years ago, you guys. Many materials capable of being successfully influenced, independent qualified witnesses.
The
The
next,
system
go on, you go.
the system is a single entity made up of many discrete components. It has many interrelated parts, unfortunately, continually being added to by the inventor. It was discovered fortuitously by Hutchinson, was experimenting with early Tesla systems and static machines such as Van de Graaff generators. I think he
Eddie, is this
had
the right page? Is this the right page here that you're on?
uh, the next one should say page 3 at the top.
Three, yeah, it says three
They're
at the top.
numbered. They're all numbered,
Yeah,
right?
it says three at the top. So you're on
Yep.
three.
Yep. You betcha. The earliest explanation was given by Mel Winfield of Vancouver, whose name may be familiar from Dr. Napier's
Napier's.
Napier's 1988 Congress in Germany. He suggested that the explanation for the phenomenon was due to a method of making the electromagnetic field spin or swirl in some unknown way. I think he just nailed it right there. That's super awesome. Ferros technology was involved in 3 phases of development. The first phase of which was in the basement of a house in Vancouver. This is where John Hutchinson's original work was done. The collection of apparatus, which will boggle the mind, can be seen on the video shown during the lecture and available from the publisher. I just want to say that if people go to the YouTube channel MES, which stands for Math Easy Solutions, Matthew is there. That's his channel, and he's a friend of John, and he's the guy that I'm going on the show with John. But he's got absolutely the best playlist of stuff from John. Just have a look at his site; it's amazing. Also, Matthew is a mathematical genius. There's no question about that. The collection of apparatus, which will boggle the mind, can be seen on the video. I read that available from the publisher and replicated in figures 11 and 12. That was the phase 0 development. Phase 1 was when we stepped in with some money and took the equipment from the original location and put it in a more reasonable setting. Phase 2 was a third location prior to it being dismantled and put into storage by John. The main thing about this technology, apart from its unusual phenomenology, is that
No,
this is that right? I don't know.
phenomenology, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, is that it is highly transitory. The phenomenon come and go virtually as they please. One has to sit with this apparatus from between 6 hours and 6 days before one actually sees something occurring. That's basically because it takes a long time for it to charge up and go non-linear, but when it goes non-linear, then stuff starts to happen. This makes it virtually impossible to interest someone who would like to try to develop it to assist in funding, for instance. You can't assume that someone would sit there who is ready to help develop a technology and have him wait and wait, and perhaps nothing will happen. It's unusual to ask someone to wait 6 days for a phenomenon that they're interested in developing commercially. So one can imagine that we've had some difficulty in the past in financing this program. Note in Figure 11 one of the Tesla coils in the foreground. The main coil is 4.5 feet, 1.4 meters high. It was extremely difficult to get around in the first lab, phase 0. The first laboratory in Vancouver was so densely packed with equipment that you could not find a place to put your foot down. You had to step around all sorts of objects that were put on the floor. I heard John and Nancy yesterday say that there were 24 tons of equipment in that I think it was an apartment, yeah, which is insane. It's amazing the floor didn't give out. Disruptive phenomenon. In the video, a bushing is shown breaking up. It was a steel bushing about 2 inches, 5 centimeters in the diameter by 3 to 4 inches, 9 centimeters long. John still has that in his lab, and I have some to show as well, figures 1 and 2. The next part of the video is well known. I will try to explain some of its phenomenology.
Yeah, that's right.
It starts with John warming up the equipment to determine where the optimum place for positioning the test objects, which will either take off or burst. He puts coins and bits of styrofoam where he believes is going to be the active zone. The first thing that happened is a quarter, 25-cent coin, starts to flip and vibrate. Now he knows he should concentrate putting specimens in that zone, and he does so. We see some water in a coffee cup that appears, I remember this one, it's crazy. It appears to be swirling, although it's not. It is merely the surface rippling by some electromagnetic means, and the coffee cup is dancing around the top of a yellow milk carton. It's another way for him to determine where the zone is. Then we see a flat file, 8 inches, 20 centimeters long, breaking apart. This file broke into 4 more or less equal sections. That's interesting. Wow. Normally it would break. Normally, if you break a bar magnet, you know that you break it north, south, north, south, north, south, etc. So the parts tend to stick back together again. In this case, the segments were magnetized the wrong way, which is another clue, by some phenomenon not known, and they repel each other. Other when they're put together as at the breaks. This may be indicative of the development of large-scale monopolar regions, and I underline that because, again, ultra important. This might lead back to some of Floyd Sweet's or Sparky Sweet's work with the VTA that are, okay, so the development of large-scale monopolar regions that are of such intensity that they disrupt the material itself. It's as reasonable an explanation as I've been able to come up with, or anyone else. Lifting phenomenon. We then proceed to document some lifting phenomenon. The objects that are lifted in the first part of the section are on the order of a few pounds. All of them lift off with a twist. They spiral as they lift off, which is again interesting. There has to be a particular geometry with respect to down gravity for them to take off. Some objects, if you lie them on their sides, won't take off. If you turn them on their ends, they will take off. That's crazy. The geometrical form of the objects, their composition, and the relationship to the environment, the field structure around them that is being created by the device all play a part in how these things take off. There are 4 main modes of trajectory that these objects can follow if they do choose to take off. There's a slow looping arc where the objects will basically take off very slowly in a matter of a couple seconds and loop and fall back somewhere. It is almost as if the Earth moves underneath them while they're in flight, and they fall back in different locations. The second type of trajectory is a ballistic takeoff. In other words, there's an impulse of energy at the beginning of the trajectory with no further power applied to the lifting, therefore, and the objects hit the ceiling and come,
Thereafter, no,
or
lifting
thereafter, yeah, thereafter, and the objects hit the ceilings and come back down. A third type of trajectory is a powered one where there appears to be continuous application of lifting force. I have some evidence taken from the video. The fourth trajectory is hovering, where objects just rise up and sit there, which I've seen a bunch of those. The objects can be any material whatsoever: sheet metal, wood, styrofoam, lead, copper, zinc.
amalgams.
What is that?
Amalgams. I think it's combinations of materials.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, and all either take off or they burst apart or they do nothing, and that's 99% of the time. So he's saying that it's only like 1% of the time that stuff happens. Lighting phenomenon. Following that is a strange lighting phenomenon. This only occurred once, but fortunately, while John was filming. Incidentally, this early film with the most spectacular results observed was taken by John himself. It was taken in 1981, and all of a sudden, a sheet of iridescence descended between the camera and some of the apparatus, and apparati, and one sees the sheet of light. It was a strange pinkish. It has a strange pinkish center to it. That's really interesting. The pink, um, and hovered there for a while and then disappeared. The pink was shown also in the serial generator when they were running it. There was a pink as well. John thought he was hallucinating, but we then discovered the film. It turned out something else was definitely there. In the same video, we observed heavier objects taking off, including a 19-pound, 8.6 kilogram bronze bushing, and water in a cup that dances around the surface of which is vibrating. I think I remember seeing that one. There are no ultrasonic or sonic devices in this particular series of experiments. That's interesting. I remember hearing a really crazy noise when he was running some of the experiments. We'll talk about that a little bit with him himself. There are no magnetic components underneath or over top. There are no field coils underneath or over top of anywhere within 6 feet, 1.8 meters. These images were taken while the apparatus was performing at its peak and shows best results from the earlier experiments. Sometimes, instead of lifting objects, John would purposely try to destroy them. In one case, a quarter-inch round rat-tail file rests on a plywood base and is held down from taking off by two plywood pieces. Beside it are some quarter and penny coins. The file is glowing white hot, and yet there is no scorching of the wood plywood pieces, which are holding it down, and that's crazy. Neither are any of the coins affected. This is explainable in terms of RF, so radio frequency heating theory, because you can have eddy currents heating on the surface, and it's almost cool to the touch very shortly thereafter. It's still unusual that there is no conductive heat transferred to the wood. So basically, the wood doesn't scorch or burn. Um, from time to time, there are scorch marks on the boards from other experiments. The apparatus makes fire spontaneously in parts of the lab if you're not careful. Wow. The original Phase Zero lab setup was primitive, crowded. Oh, that's probably what that word was, crowded, and had poor connections and had hand wound coils. However, the film that have most of the best lift episodes were done in this earlier setup, drawing a maximum of 1.5 kilowatts continuously from house mains. That's really important because um, that's the amount of power that a normal circuit will take before the breaker goes, is 1,500 watts basically. So he doesn't need a lot of power to make this stuff happen. Disruptive effects. A wealth of confirmatory physical samples, including water, aluminum, iron steel, molybdenum steel, wood, copper, bronze, and conformations of the above or combinations of the above. All,
Combinations of both.
yeah, all shapes, sizes, and not sure. And
Masses.
yeah, masses. Yep. Certain materials subject to certain influences preferentially. Results of physical, chemical, and energetic analysis. Uh, BC Institute of Technology. I went to the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. BCIT is an awesome school in Vancouver. Um, ooh, hard, hardness, brittleness, and ductility.
Ductility.
Yeah, ductility. Optical microscope,
Microscopy.
microscopy. Um, BC Hydro R&D Laboratory, scanning electron microscope, um, energy dispersive analysis, um, University of Toronto Department of Metallurgy. I took metallurgy, took years of it. Scanning electron microscope, microscopy. Yeah. Thank you. Energy disruptive analysis, X-rays, and Los Alamos tests. They did take some stuff to Los Alamos and do tests. Um, John John has friends in the Pentagon. I heard him talking yesterday about one of the guys who runs, I can't remember what he said, but he was a super high up guy in the Pentagon when it had to do with technologies. And he's a friend of John's. And I think last year when we had that, when we were trying to recreate the Hutchinson effect and John was in there, John told us that his DOD friends were there and he was referring to these guys. The disruptive part of the lift.
Eddie, do you want me to take over?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, and I'll read the small sections if you as we go along here. But yeah, thank you, Brendan. You can take over.
So just continuing the Hutchinson file, the disruptive part of this lift and disruption system has produced confirmatory physical samples that include water, aluminium, iron, steel, molybdenum, wood, copper, bronze, etc., with many shapes, sizes, and masses. Certain materials are subject to certain influences depending on shape, composition, and other factors. We have tested various pieces that have broken apart for hardness, ductility, etc. I think ductility means flexibility. I have to look that up though.
It does, yeah.
We have used optical and electron microscopes. We have taken scanning electron microscopes with EDA's energy dispersive analysis to determine the composition at various points. Two samples of aluminium are shown, one of which is the center of figure 1, which is twisted up in a left-handed spiral.
That's really interesting too. Sorry, Brendan, but that left-handed twist, I've heard that before of some special metals.
And in figure 2, on the left, which was blown into little fibers. Lying on the ruler in figure 1 to the left of center is a molybdenum rod, molybdenum rod. I can't pronounce that.
It's molybdenum.
Molybdenum rod used in nuclear reactors. These things are supposed to withstand temperatures of about 5,000 Farad, 5,000
degrees
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
We watched these things wiggle back and forth and stopped the apparatus halfway through a wiggle, and that's the result. Figure 2 left shows the piece of cast aluminium that burst apart. In general, Figure 1 shows a collection of pieces of metal that have been blasted apart or twisted. The largest piece in the background is about 12 to 13 inches long. It's 2 inches in diameter of regular mild steel and 3/8 of an inch long part, and a 3/8 of an inch long part was blasted off the end and crumbled like a cookie. Fragments have been analyzed to have anomalously high silicon content, although the original material was not a silicon steel. The standing piece on the left is a 5 to 6 inches tall and 1 to 1/4 inches in diameter. It is a piece of case-hardened steel. The case hardening has been blown off at the top, and about 3/4 of an inch of it, about 3/4 of an inch of it vaporized during the experiment. Then there are various pieces of aluminum and steel. In English, that's aluminium. American is aluminum. On the right of Figure 2 is a boring bar. You can still see the old tool bit that John was using through it. It was on a shelf about 10 feet away from the center of the apparatus, and he did not see it happen. It just bent up into a tight U shape, and deposited a quantity of copper at the end. The copper seemed to somehow magically come out of the solid solution, if it was ever in solution in the first place, and amalgamate as globs at the break. As far as the aluminium is concerned, it's a volume effect, not merely an eddy current surface effect. The whole thing is blasted right through. Figures 3 to 6 show some of the scanning electron microscope photos taken by University of Toronto. Figure 3 shows an aluminium specimen at about 70 times magnification, and the whole surface is torn apart, as if it was gouged randomly by some mechanical means. It has not been smoothed and polished and subject to X-ray or dispersion analysis yet. A piece of iron is shown in Figure 4 and was analyzed for composition, which showed anomalously high amounts of copper. With a little higher magnification for Figures 7 and 8, we see what happens in a polished aluminium sample under the scanning electron microscope. Figure 7 shows 2 main horizontal fracture zones. So here's Figure 1. Examples of disruptive phenomena, including a broken bushing. Figure 2, 2 samples of disruptive phenomena, contortion and segmentalization. Figure 3, aluminium specimen from one of John Hutchinson's experiments, October 1984, 70 times magnification. Figure 4, fractured iron rod bar which includes the regions which were mapped by X-ray. See also Figures 9 and 10. So here we have Hutchinson effect, field strength measurement. I think that's third vertical
8-inch vertical loop.
8-inch vertical loop, H6 field.
I think that's HB in brackets field.
HB in brackets field. HB,
Yeah.
which is like a magnetic, isn't it? Magnetic.
Yep.
Figure 14, field strength measurement during Hutchinson effect. Experiments at about 350 kilohertz showing strength versus distance from source.
That 350 kilohertz is a really great nugget
Distance
of
from
information.
center, distance from center of, what's that?
Of active area.
Active area.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just that one.
Yeah.
Plot 6. So this is showing acceleration. I don't know what I should imagine where's the acceleration on the y-axis and distance or on the x-axis. I don't know. So plot of linearly rising powered takeoff of a 19-pound bushing calculated on an acceleration time graph. Yeah, so the y-axis is acceleration, the x-axis is time.
It's very linear, hey? Look at it. That's insane.
This is a polished sample. That is why it looks nice and clean. Notice the unusual globules are forming, positions B and C. He's talking down. I think he's talking about the graph.
I'm not sure because this is off a different page, right?
Okay. We examined these particular globules and they're virtually pure elements. One is copper, another is manganese, and the others are different elements. These globules seem to arrange themselves along the planes, and these planes are no doubt the ones that split apart and delaminate into fibers.
Yeah.
Figures 9 and 10 show the relative elemental abundances of locations H and D in figures 7 and 8. Normally, the aluminium comes out looking like figure 9. The average is mostly aluminium, of course, but with a bit of copper in it. And yet figure 10 shows an area around where the fractures occur, and we have actually located one of the copper blobs plus some chlorine from our fingers. Usually you see some chlorine and sodium from salt in your hands if you're touching samples. It's certainly telling us that something unusual is happening. I've not seen another apparatus which makes the alloying material in an alloy come out of the solid solution. Usually it's totally dispersed in the melt, but in this case we're undispersing it somehow. Eddie, will you just tell me what technique is using a similar technique for all of these, like high voltage field at a distance or something like that? What's he
Oh
using?
yeah. Well, yeah, it's high voltage. It's like what I said. There's a static field with DC set up with Van de Graaff generators or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you bootstrap on top of that AC. It's exactly what P.T. Brown was doing, and that was classified for a really long time. The bootstrapping part. It's very, very powerful. It said 350 kilohertz, I think it was on the other page.
So he's sending with a device. He's sending a frequency to these objects, and he's using a similar method for all the different objects, right?
Yeah, it's really complicated the way that he does it. Like that's a real simple explanation of it. Yeah, we're going to get into it a lot more when we go through the actual paper that John wrote on the apparatus that he used, and maybe even get him to talk about it on camera.
The Pharaoh's experimental setup for the Hutchinson effect. Phase 1 physical layout. I mean, you might be able to read that, Eddie. I can't read the.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to read. It's just showing where things were set up essentially. Um, yeah, it's really hard to read.
Okay, so let's go to the next page.
Yeah.
Increasing propulsive power is being applied to this as witnessed by the increasing acceleration curve. These are the actual measurements to about 0.16 seconds, sorry, 0.16 seconds, and beyond is the extrapolation.
Yep.
The minus, is that 8 or 9?
9.1, yeah.
The minus 9.1 in the acceleration equation is merely an artifact of my measuring problem, analyzing that film strip. Keep in mind, this means that, and John Hutchinson wrote this, is that right?
No, this is George Hathaway writing, but he worked with John Hutchison, right?
Keep in mind, this means that when it hits the ceiling, this is 19 pounds. Bushing is traveling
This 19-pound bushing is traveling.
This 19-pound bushing is traveling at 20 meters per second, 45 miles per hour, or 72 kilometers an hour, and increasing.
That's pretty crazy when you think about that, right?
I am at sea and trying to determine how the device can provide a lift. This theoretical background listing, I mention a few names that might have something to do with an explanation of it. Discussion of current and early theories in classical and quantum physics. Energetic effects. G. Le Bon.
Yeah, Le Bon, yeah.
Pulsar effects. Hooper. Energetic effects. Valley.
Yep.
Boyer. Prigogine. Pulsar effects. Hooper, Holt, Graham, and Lahotz. Linseer and
Zin, it's a Z, Zin.
Zinseer and Pesca, plus many others not mentioned here.
Like Ken Shoulders. Just saying.
Applications: propulsive, microgravity environments on Earth, rocket payload.
I think you might have missed the bottom part of that.
On the other page, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Plus many others not mentioned here. Finally, here is a listing of a few potential applications of this effect if it can be produced in such a format that it is repeatable and controllable. Rocket payload assist, materials handling and warehousing, floating things into position, materials handling of hot objects, objects that are highly radioactive or dangerous, forging and casting, extruding of metals, alloying, power production, conversion, etc., and defense applications.
Quite the list, right?
In conclusion, this is an extremely difficult technology to wrap one's mind around. I have had a great deal of difficulty in convincing scientists to think about this possibility, let alone try to provide some mechanisms for understanding the operation. Is he saying the experiments themselves are very difficult, or just communicate, or getting the mainstream scientists to?
Well, I think he's talking about the mainstream scientists, but also the experiments. I mean, you heard them say that 99% of the time something doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Only 1% of the time stuff is happening. So
it's a fairly simple technique. Is that right? Is it
no. This is ultra complex. He uses multiple Tesla coils and creates interference patterns, has to figure out exactly where the zones are. And it all does relate back. It relates back to charge clusters, everyone. Ken Shoulders. And John and Ken were great friends, but they couldn't, that wasn't known until it came out and I started talking about it, basically.
But it's kind of like, is it rocket science level, or is it like complicated car mechanics?
No, it's past rocket science level.
More complex
With
than science.
absolutely, it's yeah. This
Not,
is yeah. That's why it's taken so many years to even kind of understand it,
uh,
right? Um, John had Department of Defense guys, Pentagon guys, all kinds of people back in the day. And he's still friends with some of them. So, no, this is very, very high level, probably the highest level, actually. I don't think there's anything more than except for Ken Shoulders and what Chris Beskar is doing. And all three of these guys are all connected, right? Charge clusters or EVOs. Yeah.
um, anyway, I was going to say I'm not sure if that's going to put people off or motivate. I mean, because we
Well,
like we like
it is
we
what
like
it
to see
is,
we
right?
like to see free energy as kind of. It's nice to hear that quite a lot of it's sort of simple, at least it deceptively simple, But anyway, it is what it is, like you said.
Yep.
Um, Applications: propulsive, microgravity environments on Earth, rocket payload, boost, assist, materials handling and warehousing, energetic, forging, casting, extruding of metals, alloying, power production, conversion, and transmission, other defense applications, etc., etc. I hope I'll be able to engender some interest so that people will think about it. Perhaps some will if they have some equipment to do some experiments as well. I must caution anyone who is pursuing this that it is extremely dangerous apparatus. It has
Mhm.
never knocked it has never knocked any of my filings out,
Fillings out.
fillings out, but certainly has a potential for doing so. It has smashed mirrors in one of its incarnations, 80 feet away. It has overturned a large metal object about 50 to 60 pounds, about 100 feet away, and
Wow.
its effects can't be pinpointed unless we're lucky. We try to find out the active area and then we hope that something will happen, but perhaps something very far away will happen. The apparatus is capable of starting fires anywhere. It will start fires in concrete,
Wow.
little bursts of flame here and there, and it will cause your main circuits to have problems. We've blown fuses as well as circuit breakers and large lights.
I just want to sort of say that the Hutchinson effect um, was never really, I mean, they kind of nailed it down, but the science of the Hutchinson effect, like what you were just talking about, is why we're doing all of Ken Shoulders' research, because that is the actual science. And nobody knew more than Ken Shoulders. And of course, Chris Beskar, because he's his business partner. And Stavati Aerospace is using all of these technologies to do anti-gravity and free energy and everything. So the science has been sort of focused in, and they know how to focus in on it. But the Hutchinson effect was such a broad range of effects. It's not just one experiment. It's like multiple different combinations of things that he did essentially, right? But he is basically on the crest of the wave. He is the wave, as a matter of fact. Again, him and Ken Shoulders were very good friends. He even talked about it yesterday when we were in the chat and live with them yesterday. So, yeah.
Letter from Jack Hook, February 25th, 1991. Your recent letter to me suggests you are experiencing some paranormal phenomena experiencing more paranormal phenomena than the normal people do. Of course, this is of great interest to me. I met a lot of people in paranormal research activities who describe similar experiences. In general, you are having your mind to out and access connect with remote people and things. I'm enclosing my original model paper, which provides a way of thinking about how the mind can go out and access remote information. I know I sent this paper to you years ago, but it may have been misplaced with all the international traveling you have been doing. The key point is that you can learn to control when and where you want your mind to go. Similarly, you can be open to another, e.g., Larry or Yin, accessing your thoughts, or so you can block that by simply mentally putting those thoughts you do not want others to access in a safe and close the door. I think it is good to have the capability to sense things like electromagnetic fields when you want to. This can be controlled by setting a goal, making a mental connection to that goal, commanding it to happen, and then letting go, allowing it to happen.
Yeah, that's cool.
These are the same basic instructions I use to teach people to bend metal with their minds. The instructions work reliably when you understand how this can work and practice. The same applies to creating additional energy in a generator. In many of your experiments, there is a lot of normal energy around, e.g., your microwave radar. I think you want something to happen, goal. Your mind goes out and coheres the local available energy, which then creates a force which attempts to achieve the goal. The letting go step seems to be the most important from all my research, and you seem to do it. You seem to do that very well.
Wow.
Improving your reliability requires a lot of practice, a good model, and not thinking about it too much. Further, by making your goals very precise and specific, this process can be perfected. Creating a peak emotional event at the time you want the phenomena event to happen also seems to be an important ingredient. I've always said that it would be nice to have a temperature sensing device on a woman who sees her child under a car. As she lifts the car off the child, I think there will be a 20 degrees drop in the local air temperature. Clearly, she has a goal: get the car off the child. This is a peak emotional event. She does not think about not being able to lift a car. The thermal energy in the air is extracted and a force is cohered, which helps her lift the car.
Wow.
John, I hope this information is useful and good luck in your continued research. Say hello to Yin for me. Experimental. Sorry, so that's up. Okay.
See how I've got Colonel Alexander highlighted there? That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the people that visited with John.
Vancouver Experimental Observation by John Hook, August 1985. Section 1, Summary and Conclusions. During the year 1971, John Hutchinson set out to build some Tesla coils.
Wow, it goes back that
He
far.
also is a collector of old high voltage and static electricity generating equipment.
Which should be all vacuum tube.
A gun collector. One evening, while tinkering with this equipment, creating large sparks and high voltage effects, he was struck on the shoulder by a piece of metal. He threw it back toward where it came from, and it struck him again.
Wow.
He had accidentally created what we call the Hutchinson effect.
Well, that's where it started.
During the ensuing years, he found that by During the ensuing years, he found that. Is that right? Am I on the right page? 15.
By adjusting. Yep.
By adjusting the settings on the equipment, things would levitate, move horizontally, bend, break, and explode.
Wow.
Hutchinson met Alice Pezaro and George Hathaway, who have formed Pharaoh's Technologies Limited, in search for new innovative technologies. Pezaro and Hathaway worked with Hutchinson, conducting many experiments in attempting to replicate and understand the phenomena. They also were looking for funds to perform the research necessary to apply this knowledge. The equipment belongs to Hutchinson and is in his residence. The area in which the majority of the effects occur is determined empirically. Often major events occur outside the intended target area where test objects were placed. I think that's a typo. Excuse me. In the early days of their experimentation, many hovering and apparently anti-gravity type events occurred. Hutchinson and the equipment have moved twice in the last few years, requiring many months to again obtain effects. During this time, more power and equipment have been added to the system. Lately, most of the observed effects have been metal exploding or bending, objects moving horizontally or expanding and contracting. A group of scientists from Los Alamos had witnessed had witnesses. Sorry, I'll read that again. A group of scientists from Los Alamos had witnesses an experiment last year with no results. On August 13th and 14th, 1985, this author had the opportunity to witness 2 evenings of experiments. I had taken a number of samples to put in the vicinity of the equipment at the intended target area. Most of the samples and controls left in Southern California. I took 35mm pictures and rented a 1/2-inch home video recording system for documentation and assistance in observation. There were some very interesting events captured on the videotape, and some of those were observed when they happened. Aluminium foil pieces and some other samples, including plastic, were observed to slide or fall over as if hit by an impulse at apparently random intervals throughout both evenings. At one point, one of the aluminium foil pieces appeared to move up and down with a 1 to 3 second period. I was satisfied that no fraudulence was occurring and was impressed by the fact that most of the events were covered by the video camera. However, some of the biggest events occurred outside and the intended target area. The first evening, a gun barrel and a very heavy 60-pound brass cylinder were hurled from a shelf in the back corner of the room onto the floor. Simultaneously, it's like a psychic phenomenon almost. It's like simultaneously on the opposite side of the room toward the back, 3 other objects were hurled to the ground, like a poltergeist or something almost, but to do with physics.
It's charge clusters. It's EVOs, right?
One was a heavy aluminium bar, 3/4 of an inch, 2.5 inch by 12 inch. It was bent 30 degrees. Hutchinson said that it was straight at the beginning of the evening. Another object was a 15-pound brass bushing. These objects can be seen falling in the video record, but their initial location is not recorded. I'm quite sure that no one was hiding in that part of the room throwing these objects. I was with both Hutchinson and Pesaro during the entire experiment. Note, none of the samples I had were affected. There was a 4x4 array of small magnets set up in the target area. The first evening, these magnets were spread all over because a big brass cylinder fell on the board supporting them. It actually fell onto the calculator, but the calculator continued to function. However, during the second day, no objects fell. Let me just see what we've got left here.
Yeah, I can pick up and read too. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, but there's a lot of graphs.
You want to read, Eddie?
Yeah, I can read some more. Yeah.
Into the target area.
Into the where
page
are we?
16, top of page 16.
Okay, yeah, into the target area containing the 4x4 array, but the magnets did move around, apparently due to the same horizontal force that pushed the aluminum foil pieces off the board. More detail on the objects that moved is contained in section 2 of this report. Pizarro and Hutchinson reported many stories about what they observed in previous experiments. I was struck by the many similarities that were to the type of phenomenon I observed at PK parties, was so kind of what you just said, and some of the type of phenomena associated with other types of macro PK, which stands for psychokinesis, which is moving things with your mind or with energy events. Could Hutchinson be electrically stimulating the same kind of energy or fields that are responsible for PK events? Question mark. That's probably the case. There are also some dissimilarities. The comparison will be made in section 3. Might they have discovered a PK amplifier? Question mark. I highlighted that. That's really interesting. Wow. It is possible that I could be biased because of my research into PK phenomenon. Pizarro believes that they are creating some kind of field that stimulates some energy to be dumped into the object, which again is probably charge clusters, right? Or used by any object surface to generate the observed effects. Remember, this is back in the 80s too, right? Charge clusters and Ken shoulders and everything didn't come along. I mean, he was working on that stuff, but probably not talked about in the public. No one has a theoretical explanation for what is occurring. I would suggest that at the end of the day, subquantum kinetics will actually get to the answer of that. That's part of our job. However, it is a better understand. However, if a better understanding can be developed, then it would be possible to devise experiments whose results could be predicted. Several theoretical approaches may be relevant. Example, Tom E. Bearden, Williams, Professor Elizabeth, uh, Ross, Ruscher,
Russia.
Professor William Tiller, Professor Jack, DEA, etc. In conclusion, I believe that Hutchinson is creating a real phenomenon with his equipment that is somehow being stimulated by some combination of electrical effects being emitted. And that's what I mean. It's really complicated. Currently, the effects are so random in both time and space that it is very difficult to conduct meaningful experiments. However, if someone can figure out a way to focus the effects consistently in a target area, and that is exactly what Stavati has done with charge cluster technology when it comes to the compact nuclear fusion reactor, and also flying the hover car and all these other things that Stavati is using for anti-gravity technologies, right? Um, then more, and what's that word? Anomalistic.
Anomalistic.
Yep, data would be produced. Ideas were discussed on how to accomplish this focusing. There are many other parameters involved um, in each of the elements of the experiment that need to be better understood in order to obtain consistent effects. It is likely that effects are being created that cannot be explained by conventional physics. Bingo. That is such an awesome statement. Again, I would say that subquantum kinetics has the best chance of explaining this. And therefore, some of the new models can be created to extend physics. In attempts to explain anomalous phenomenon could be explained in conjunction with the Hutchinson effect. And I have to say, too, that Paul was working on subquantum kinetics back when all this stuff was happening. That's when he first started, was back in the 80s, right? Um, on August 13th of 1985, I flew to Vancouver, BC from Los Angeles to observe the Hutchinson effect. Pizarro met me at the airport and helped me get settled in the hotel. Pizarro talked about their experiments. I rented a video camera and recording equipment. We took the equipment to Hutchinson's residence and set up the equipment and samples in the target area. They cannot run the experiment during the day because it disturbs all the electrical equipment of the neighborhood. The video camera was placed on a ladder about 15 feet from the target area and cabled to the recording equipment located in another room. The room which contained the equipment has two narrow walkways, and old electronic equipment is stacked to the ceiling on the outside of both walkways. And there are pictures and whatnot that Matthew has on his webs or his YouTube
Yeah.
channel that shows all of this stuff.
I
The
just,
center of,
I just going. I just looking how far we're going. Okay, so that's all. Okay, so it's just
so we're on 17.
Mr. 117, 24,
The
20.
center,
Okay, I'll go back. I'll go back to it. 17. 117 now. Okay. 18, 17. No, go on. You can carry on now.
okay, the center of the room contains a massive amount of equipment, including a lot of power conditioning equipment. Two very large Tesla coils, that's really important. Several Van de Graaff generators, that's also important. Only working as part of the system. A Jacob's ladder and a large spark gap generator, and that's also super important. Um, I did not get into the details of the equipment because that is not my field, and Pizarro said they were secret elements. Again, stuff that John probably only knew about. The first evening, August 13th, we started the experiment at 8:45 p.m. Table 1 lists the experiment events that I recorded. Time 8:45 p.m. The start 9:10. Big brash bushing 17 pounds fell over onto the area of my samples, knocked the magnets around. Aluminum foil behind bushings was moving up and down slightly. At 9:46 p.m., large pieces of aluminum foil fell off left side. 9:50, large pieces of aluminum foil fell off left side again. 10 p.m., something fell off the shelf in the back part of the room, left side, as well as directly below the target area. 10:19, lights and fuses blew out. Table of elements of August 13th, 1985. Figure 1 is a sketch of the room and shows where things were generally located. It is not to scale. The direction of travel of the movement of the objects is noted in Figure 1. Photos 1 and 2 were taken of the target area before the experiment began on August 13th, 1985. The samples I had taken were on the table uh, toward the front of the room, closest to the camera. There were two large metal rings hanging from the ceiling over the target area that slowly moved periodically throughout the evening. Photos 3 and 4 were taken after the fuses blew out with only a candle to check things out. Um, it can be seen that things in the target area had moved around. The cylinder on the second table fell over onto the first table. The major action during the first evening was towards the front of the second table. It can be seen in the photos that some of the aluminum foil moved around, and this is verified on the videotape. Photo 5 was taken from the target area towards the front of the room, capturing one of the Tesla coils and Van de Graaff generator. This picture provides a sense of the amount of equipment and cramped conditions. Throughout the evening, Hutchinson has constantly changed the settings on all of the room. So he was trying to find the interference zones or the areas where the maximum stuff would happen. Um, Photo 6 was taken of things that had fallen on the floor near the end of the first experiment. This photo was taken. This photo was taken down the left walkway. And here we have photo 1 with the target area of the samples that we were talking about. Photo 2 is the target area that Jack, is it Hook? Hoof?
I'd say Hook.
Hook, the Jack Hook sample. Um, Now this one's kind of interesting, and I did highlight a couple things on page 19, where you can see the the thing at the top in this square box is the spark gap, and then you've got one Tesla coil on right beside it, and then you have another Tesla coil um, on the other table. But notice how it's not perfectly lined up, and then we have a ruby laser and a microwave antenna. This is what I mean. There's a lot of factors involved with what he was doing, right? John is a genius. John and Chris Beskar, Ken Scholars, and Pete Peterson are all in the same category. Figure 1, which is a sketch of the experimental setup in the room, describes the location of samples, selected instruments, control area, and the direction of displacement of artifacts placed by the Hutchinson effect. August 13th, 1985, not drawn to scale. So that was one of the setups that he personally witnessed. And now here is what I was talking about. Um, this is what I'm talking about. And so these are interference patterns. And when you have two interference patterns that intersect in certain ways and areas, you can see the intersection points that I've highlighted. That's where the magic happens. And that's why John had to sometimes figure out where it was happening within the room. I think if someone were to redo these experiments in a proper laboratory, then we could actually have, you know, grid coordinates or something to figure out what's going on here. Hey, Carmen, very cool. Uh, Figure 2, wave postulation, intersection of two postulation, intersection of two active monopolar antenna source wavefronts. So again, we're going back to that idea of the monopole that we always talk about. The two large events in the back of the room seem to occur at the same time. I postulated that maybe this machine was somehow acting as two monopole antennas radiating waves as shown in figure 2, which is what he was doing, absolutely. On a wave from the radiator, of, of a wave from the radiator, one had the right property to interact with the wave from the radiator too. Then simultaneous events should be expected at the intersection of these circles.
At the two intersections.
Of the two intersections of these circles, especially if there was something to affect at both locations. And again, that's why John was moving stuff around. I think he used the foil and the plastic wrap to trying to figure out where these areas were. The idea prompted me to set up additional target areas in the left walkway on the second day of the experiment. Now, this is the figure 3, the setup and noted changes for August 14th, 1985 experiments. So again, so they move stuff around, right? They're looking, they're experimenting essentially, right? I took all of our samples back to the hotel with me so that I can control them at all times. The geometry for the experiment on August 14th, 1985 is shown in Figure 3. The record of events is presented in Table 2. With only one video camera, um, it was not possible to prove that we obtained simultaneous events. However, pieces of aluminum foil did move, fall to the floor on both walkways during the evening. I set up the whole target area on the second day. I checked under the table for other equipment, none. I, I moved the front table back about 2 or 3 feet from where it was on the first day, hoping to get the major effects of the samples I took. And here, it's interesting at the top of this, somebody had handwritten McDonnell Douglas, and I don't know if that was probably, I don't know who did that. Um, Position 9 and 10, indications of movement of magnets and aluminum objects. So you can see the magnets are those little circle things there, and you can see that they have moved around. Photo 9 was taken at the break. A new videotape was also put into the recorder at this time. Photo 10 was taken of the sample area, front table in the target area at the end of the experiment. Explanation of the sequence of photos
Examination of the
examination of the sequence of photos 8, 9, and 10 shows the movement of the magnets and the aluminum objects. Photo 11 verifies that nothing on the back table in the target area moved. Fortunately, some movement did occur in the area of our samples on the second day. However, nothing lifted off or hovered as I had hoped. The video record does show impulsive type movements, and there does seem to be a and see, I don't have all the pages, so I don't know what that was about to say. I think I just kept or went for all the stuff that really resonated with me. I might have them all somewhere else. So the electromagnetic hypothesis, letter from Hathaway Consulting Services, Toronto, Canada, November 1985. The best explanation for the lift so far came from Leon Drag Dragon Dragoon Dragon and Professor
Panos Papas.
Pathos
Papas.
postulated a charge coherence. This is it. Postulated a charge coherence between the localized area of the Earth or launch platform and the specimen to be launched. The sudden coherence, and we talk about that when we talk about phase conjugation, especially in barium titanate crystals. This sudden coherence could affect the gravitational pull on the objects and give it a thrust if properly directed. It could be simulated by sudden discharges. Is spark gaps as you have, but unless these gaps are precisely tuned and coordinated in phase, and that's what's really hard, is getting everything, especially the phasing and the time, or which is the timing of everything perfect. The elliptic phenomenon results would appear only sporadically.
Sporadically.
Yeah. I.e., when a chance coherent state was achieved during spark cycle. Again, we're back to that coherent state. Letter from Professor Dr. Pathos
Panos
T.
Papas.
Pathos. That's a tongue twister. Athens, October 1985. As I have experimentally observed gravitational-like attracting forces between identically excited by microwave bodies, your experiment gave me the idea that you probably disturbed the microwave resonance between the orbiting electrons in the mass of the Earth and orbiting electrons in the mass of the various objects. Bingo. I remember when Chris Beskar was talking with us and saying, what is mass? We don't know what mass is. There's a real great nugget here. As a result, you extinguish the coupling, which we know as gravity between object and Earth, or even cause repulsion. I will not go into details. And again, subquantum kinetics and Paul's theory of anti-gravity, which I posted with Stavati there, really does explain how some of this stuff works. Letter from Professor Dr. Panos T. Papos, Athens, January 1990. I believe the effect were produced by a few elements, i.e. by the Tesla coils and sparks in tune, and perhaps by the static Van de Graaff generator. The generator has to be there. The underlying principle should be simpler. However, having so many experiments, the essence is lost. The essence, I believe, was around the sparks and the devices that produce them. Absolutely. That's a bingo moment right there. How many more have we got?
How many more
Yeah,
we've got?
two,
We've got one,
two more.
two,
We got
well,
two
two
more.
more. Two more.
Yeah, okay, so I'll keep going. George D. Hathaway, Historical Context and Relation to Current Physics. Although an attempt will be made to treat the lift and disruption aspects of the device separately, many areas of overlap will be inevitable. In general, the disruptive phenomenon will be analyzed in terms of invoking channeling, of triggering large amounts of electromagnetic EM energy right in the core of the materials. The lift phenomenon, in terms of examining both experimental evidence and neo-Maxwell theories, which have not been examined in sufficient detail until recently, which is true, right? And they screwed all that stuff up with Heaviside back in 1905. Until detailed measurements are made, even these tentative analysis will remain highly speculative. The intent here is to provide an initial brief um, con what's that? Compendium, a scientific and experimental investigation that appears to have most bearing on the phenomenon. For the past dozen years or so, the latter work of American inventor Nikola Tesla has been under investigation by John Hutchinson. Now, here's another great nugget. An inventor working on Faros technologies. Faros present invention consists of a particular combination of DC producing elements, example Van de Graaff generators, and AC elements, example Tesla coils. So again, we're bootstrapping by putting the DC down and then putting the AC on top. And this is what T.T. Brown did, and this is really, really important. And John did it with using those interference patterns, so he made it even more complicated, but more powerful by doing it that way. Although the actual experiment, the discovery of the effects discussed herein were fortuitous, it had a solid background of experimentation behind it. As far as the lift effect is concerned, there are many other candidate systems, both conventional and non-conventional, that appear to bear some similarity, however remote. Aluminum discs are regularly suspended by eddy currents above toroidal AC electromagnets in first-year physics class. Magnetic levitation trains are an engineering reality. Even with high-energy electrostatic repulsion, significant lift capability is possible. They all differ from the Faros device in that they have generally much lower lift per watt figures. Two, act on specific materials, conductors in the first class, dielectrics in the third class. Three, generally act vertically only by using cantilevered elements directly above and or below test objects. And four, cannot produce the entire range of observed phenomena. Faros technology has estimated claims made by many other non-conventional lift technologies and has assessed their technical and commercial feasibility. Apex A outlines several of these. And on the last page, this is something that I can actually remember seeing a thing on TV because I lived in BC, as Carmen did or does, and we both do now. I saw John go outside of his apartment into the alley with this crystal converter. I think that's what it was. And he loaded some rocks, and he literally took rocks off the alley and put them in there, tightened it up. And I think part of it is the tightening of it to create pressure on all of that. So there's a piezoelectric thing, but I'm not sure about that. But this, I thought I'd include this because the crystal energy converter, if I'm not mistaken, might have even went to Japan, the technology of it or something. We'll ask Carmen after we're done this. She might know more about it. John Hutchinson's crystal energy converter produced over 3 watts of energy without any evidence, exterior input, or batteries. It put out about it put out from zero point 0.5 to 1.7 volts at 880 to 3000 microamperes, and could be connected in series or in parallel to change the voltage and current. He is currently working on a generation of such devices. Hutchinson felt that it worked on the principle of altered space product of charge function barrier. I'm going to ask him about that. That's an interesting thing he said there. If so, it would be a significant advancement, demonstrating a simple method of tapping zero-point energy. We know that Ken Shoulders, John's really good friend, coined the term zero-point energy. So method of tapping zero-point energy and illustrating the Casimir effect. Zero-point energy is the energy in ordinary empty space. In quantum theory, so-called empty space is a seething sea of activity with fields coming and going, and that's what the Turing wave does too, right? Because this now we're talking about subquantum kinetics, we can get to the base of it, and that's exactly what is said here. The fields coming out and going, and particles created and annihilated on a microscopic level. Well, that is subquantum kinetics, absolutely what Paul was doing and what we're continuing to do, right? Zero-point energy is the remaining active or motion left in
remaining
space.
activity or
Yeah,
motion.
yeah. Zero-point energy is the remaining activity or motion left in space, even at a temperature of absolute zero. Once you freeze out most motions at minus 270 degrees centigrade or 0 degrees Kelvin, all molecular motion stops, and conventionally there is no longer any energy left except for zero-point energy, right? And charge clusters, we know now, are used to clutch the ether, which creates or connects with zero-point energy essentially. This is a mainstream concept subscribed by Nobel Prize physicists. Indeed, it is believed by such prominent physicists as Richard Feynman. Remember that Richard Feynman wrote a letter to Ken Shoulders apologizing for not kind of paying attention to what was going on. And John Archibald Wheeler. Wheeler, in fact, in 1952, in some of those charge cluster drawing pictures that I showed you, had a structure that looked very similar to charge clusters. That okay, so and John Wheeler, that even in less than 1 centimeter of vacuum at the 0 point, there is more energy that can be produced by any power plant yet built by man, enough to evaporate all of the world's oceans. And I've heard that one before.
And a cubic centimeter of vacuum. Okay.
Yeah, yep. It's not very big, right?
Has enough energy to evaporate the world's oceans.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I think Feynman said that as well. I think he came up with that.
Yep. In Victorian times, this energy field that permeates all of the universe was known by Maxwell as the ether. Thankfully, they spelt it wrong. I like spelling it with an A the way that Tesla did. But yes, there is an ether. In fact, it's all about the ether. And by Albert Einstein in his general relativity as metric plume?
And plenum.
Plenum. And in his special relativity theory as a true vacuum. Heisenberg referred to it as the plenum of vacuum field fluctuations. More popularly, it is seen as a source of free energy. The converter is believed to illustrate the Casimir effect. Hendrik Casimir proved that the vacuum fluctuations really exist. Vacuum pushes plates together so much that they generate heat and allow electrons only flow in allow electrons only flow in one direction.
It's a typographical error. Allow
Yeah, yeah,
electrons
yeah,
to
yeah.
overflow.
Only flow in one direction at their interface, or two dissimilar metals. If conditions are right, such that it is easier for the electrons to go in one direction than the other, the across the interface, and if when there is an external circuit connection, this effect could be expected to drive current around continuously. The per-
Peculiar,
peculiar
peculiar.
peculiar effect is by no means further understood and can only be observed under certain conditions which are difficult to define and to
No
maintain.
means fully understood.
Yeah, and
Gonna be
so the Hutchinson effect has been around. It's interesting since 1971. Actually, is when it says in here that that's when it first happened to him, and I think in his friendship with Ken Shoulders, John probably learned a lot about what Ken was doing, and John didn't know about Stavati. In fact, I had contact with him last night, Carmen, and he started watching all this stuff and then made this connection to Ken Shoulders and Chris Beskar. And then he said, I think he emailed me back and he said, "Thank you lots," which was kind of cool. And I also found out that his dog's name is EVO. So pretty cool. We have Carmen here. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit more about your connection to John? Because I don't even really know the whole story.
Ah,
Did your father know him? Oh, we lost her.
She may not.
Oh, just in Vancouver. Oh, she's probably driving. Okay. We'll ask her. Okay, cool. 1 minute. Okay, cool.
She's driving at the moment. Is that right?
It sounds like it. She said 1 minute though, so we'll just keep talking a little bit. Yeah. So had contact with him yesterday.
We can't hear. We can't hear her speaking if
Yeah, we
she's.
can't hear. Yeah, might have her mic off. Maybe it might also be because of her connection when she's driving around, right? Just give me five. Okay. Yeah. So had contact with him, and Carmen and I are going to be on with John and Matthew on MES is the YouTube channel, which stands for Math Easy Solutions. John was on yesterday, and I was in the live chat and putting some stuff in there, and it was kind of cool actually, Carmen, because Matthew had his list of stuff that's coming up, and he had written up about us on there. So and then I had sent him a couple more emails to try and explain more about Chris Beskar, because I don't think Matthew made the connection at that point yet, but John did make the connection last night, and he watched a whole bunch of the things that we had done with Chris Beskar and whatnot. So he's really, really happy about it. So yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, we'll just keep talking because I'd like to get Carmen to talk a little bit about her connection to John. And I think that perhaps John might have known her father, who was Bill Mueller, who Bill saw the Nazi flying bell back in the day during World War II, and I think he really understood what charge clusters were. I've known
He
them
saw the
since.
Nazi bell. Eddie, you said John Carmen's father saw the Nazi bell. What, in Germany during the
Yeah,
Nazi report?
Carmen's father was in the Hitler Youth, not because he wanted to be there, but because they probably would have killed him if he had said no. And he did actually see the Nazi flying bell at Punimundo, which was the German secret space program. He knew about charge clusters. He was absolutely brilliant. I knew him. I used to go up there and visit Carmen's mom and dad. Her mom was amazing as well too, and there's some really funny stories about that as well too. But he knew about charge clusters, and I kind of knew about them back in the '80s as well. But I also knew not to talk about that stuff at that point because that would have certainly been not good.
Is charge clusters and EVOs, is that the beginning of microelectronics? Did
Well,
Ken Shoulders
yeah,
found microelectronics? Is that
and
they
P. Peterson,
yeah.
Peterson and Ken Shoulders absolutely were responsible for vacuum microelectronics.
Mhm.
So yes, absolutely right. That is definitely the
But the
case.
founders of microelectronics, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So there's an interesting story. I'm in contact with Carrie Cassidy, who's Project Camelot, and I remember watching on there some of the stuff, and she's got some amazing stuff. She's had all of these people on. I don't know if she's had John on though, and I forgot what I
But
was going to say about Carrie.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
What? So, do you guys have any questions or anything about John until we get Carmen back
I
here?
was just thinking about that point that you were saying is more is it you're saying it's more complicated the rocket science, the John Hutchinson effects.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
yeah, absolutely. It's probably the most technical experiment that I've ever seen, and I have a paper that John Hutchison wrote himself, which we want to go through in the group here, and we're hoping to maybe even get him in to go through it with him. But it explains a lot of the apparatus that he had and sort of how he was doing things. Yeah, it's very complicated, and that's why it was never really replicated very much. And even last year, when they did that with Bob Grenier, that setup, when I looked at it, was all wrong. And me and Carmen
Mhm.
talked about it and said, yeah, it's not fucking going to work like that. Right, Carmen?
Exactly.
Yeah. So did your dad know John? Oh, shit.
She's she just
She's,
muted.
she's in and out. It's probably because of where she is and stuff. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
do we want to stop the recording now? Or what do you
Well,
want to do?
I'd like to get Carmen on so she
Can
can
you hear
talk.
me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we gotcha.
you.
Okay, my fat fingers, I guess. Hi, guys. Boy, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
So my apologies for that. I have been really
It's busy. Yeah.
well. I don't know if any of you know, but my ex has been in and out of the hospital since January 22nd,
Yes, Ray. Yeah.
and he really almost died about 4 times.
Oh my God. Oh no.
So it's really something I have to prepare for over the
Yeah.
next month or so. I think
Oh
this is
wow.
the final couple of weeks with him. So
Aw.
yeah, I really,
Yeah.
yeah.
I get it. I get it. I get it totally.
So I've been otherwise really, really busy, and then I had to get ready for my vacation rentals.
Yep.
So I really dropped everything in November because I was already looking after Ray. He had lost his license and had some other health issues.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
I stopped everything to deal with my think tank with Jean Manning and Bob and
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and everyone.
Yep. Yep.
Just on a little bit of a side note, I know Ryan did leave the building, but whatever. We are working on a couple of different projects that we have been able to apply my dad's technology to
Cool.
with success. So I just
Nice.
want to say for the group that I did allow Wayne Ohala, one of the APEC members, to take my Mark II Muller motor, which
Yep.
was
I know which one
um,
that is. Yeah.
um, really left in pieces by another guy who's now in Kelowna flogging some videos, which I'll kind of have a side chat with you about, and we
Okay.
can just kind of monitor. I'm sure other members of the group have seen some of his videos on the
I
Bedini
th-
motor, and he
I
says it
think I have too. Yeah.
Bendini. He says it his it'll all come to me in a second. I'm a little rusty. I've been, yeah, just yeah, talking more medical talk than anything else
Mm.
lately. But I'm actually down in Vancouver coming to pick up a Tesla Cyber Beast. You'll all be happy to know.
A
And I'm
what? A
going
what? What? What?
a Tesla Cyber Beast.
No way! Like that truck looking thing?
That truck looking thing.
I saw one of those in Dawson Creek the other day for the first time in my life. It was fucking awesome looking.
Well,
Wow.
there's mixed emotions on it, but Ray
Oh
had
yeah.
bought one for himself,
Oh
and
wow.
it's just too much vehicle for him.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing some horse trading, but anyways, I think he really liked my idea that I said, Ray, why don't we package that Tesla motor with this Tesla truck that you can't drive, and let me drive it around. The bulletproof
Wow.
vehicle. I'm going to wrap it with the Quest for Tesla story
Yes.
about my patent 382279 prototype.
Yes. I love it.
So the other cool thing is I put all my research into Grok and ChatGPT
Hmm.
on my Tesla motor research,
Yep.
and it told me it's worth upwards of $30 million, and I have found
I don't doubt it.
the
Yep.
motor that lit the world.
Yep. Yep.
It said it's the
Absolutely.
find of the century, and it could be, you know, really the most sought after auction item in the most recent history.
I
Yeah.
remember when you told me that one of your ideas was you wanted to take your beautiful vacation property, which I've stayed at in Penticton, turn it into a Tesla museum.
Well, or
Remember?
retreat, some sort of like
Or
a
yeah,
place where we can do um some workshops, because I have my dad's stuff and all this library of stuff, and I'd like to invite anyone who wants to come to help me scan and archive this stuff, because
ooh,
I'm going to have like a 1 to 2 year plan here where I cannot continue to run that 7,000 square foot place on 2 acres by myself.
yep,
So
yep.
I'm gonna be okay no matter what happens with Ray for the next couple of years, and my house is paid for, so I can still kind of
Oh, awesome.
hang out and decide what I want to do. But for me personally, it's too much. And if no one comes out of
Yep,
the woodwork to start to help archive this stuff, I
yep.
have no choice. It's going to get lost like every other inventor's stuff. It's going to end up in a storage unit, and my kids are not going to care. I'm going to be 60 years old next year. This is my appeal to the community. I've said it when I was on Bob's channel. I
Yep.
don't know until I'm blue in the face. I'm going to keep saying it. The amount of information in my parents' basement equals and
It's
overcomes 20
yeah,
different researchers in their leading fields, all of
yeah.
these guys you're talking about,
It's
all the
a
stuff.
gold mine. Yeah.
Yes, all that stuff in the basement. You just talked about Dr. Papas. I'll tell you about Dr. Papas. Dr. Papas came to visit us, I think, in 1991 or 1992. I was working at AMB Sound in Kelowna,
Yep. Yep.
and Dr. Papas invented a big kind of pre precursor to it's called the POP IMI. So it's a PEMF device, but on
Oh yes. Yeah.
yes, on a very high powered level.
Wow.
And he was very him and my dad, like, they literally met for like a month.
Wow. No way.
And I have
There you go.
video of all of that time in the
My God.
basement with Dr. Papas.
Awesome.
It's never been seen.
Of course it hasn't. Yeah, I didn't even
It's
know about
still
it.
on VHS tape. It hasn't, and
Oh
so
my God.
half of the VHS tapes are going to all start to deteriorate.
Yep.
I've archived half of them when I was still with Steve and we had access to VHS to DVD converters. I
Yep.
still have it, but every time my season ends, I grab it, I take it downstairs, I plug it in, try to do a few. Then, during
I
ours.
need to come and help you with some of that. I know that. Yeah. I
Honestly, whoever wants to come from Europe, from around the world, anyone, it will get kind of first dibs on being able to have access to it, and then we'll
Yep.
make it in a public archive available for everyone. Like,
Yep.
I don't want to gatekeep anything. I want to give it all away. That's what I've
That's
been saying
beautiful.
and
Love
screaming
it.
from the rooftops for 10 years, since,
Yeah.
20 since my dad's been gone.
That's beautiful. So did your dad know John?
Yes.
Of course he did.
Of
Yeah.
course,
Tell
there
us
was
more.
anyone that came to visit John, like Alex Pizarro. Alex Pizarro's file is about, I would say, a Bible thick in my parents' files, because they also had dealings with Alex Pizarro.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So whenever anyone came to visit John Hutchison, they would come and visit the two or three inventors, maybe William Baumgartner. They would come visit my dad. They
Yep.
would come visit John Hutchison, maybe Alan Franker with his Cloudbuster and Evie Gray stuff.
Yep.
So, that's all there, all of it.
Wow. That is so
And Gene
amazing.
Manning and Ralph Shafranky, who wrote the book Ether Technology,
Yep.
You know, my book, Ether Technology, is signed by almost all of those people in there.
Well, Jean is your friend, right?
Yes, and Jean actually, this is also a big one for me to swallow. And she asked me at the end of June. Now, Jean is 86 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And she said, Carmen, I'm getting tired. This psychotronics conference may be the last one I attend in person.
Oh, wow.
I'm writing my Substack, and I have a few extra subscriptions actually to give away. If anybody DMs me, I'll share
Oh,
my
yes.
subscription.
Me.
Yeah, I hadn't, I thought I had shared a link with you already, Ed. But
I
anyways,
Not with
it's
Jean, though, I don't think. Yeah.
okay. It's on Substack, and I will do that. I think I have five or six that I
Beautiful.
can
Love
give
it.
out.
Awesome.
Um, but I encourage you all to follow her on Substack, and she wanted me to contribute. That's why what led me to publish this stuff, or not publish, put this stuff into
Archived.
ChatGPT. And no, I put my research into ChatGPT because she asked me
Oh,
for a public, an article that is more for public consumption, a general interest article on that Tesla motor to kind of get the ball rolling for her.
awesome. Very
And
okay.
but that was she asked for that in June, and I said to her, you know, I'm getting ready for my vacation rental starting in July. I'm literally not even going to look up until the beginning of August.
Yep.
And what happened this last week is I had guests check in on Monday, and they are staying for a week and not checking out till tomorrow. So actually this week is the first week I've had to think, decompress, be able to process what the last 6 months of my life, 8, 12 months of my life have been.
Yeah. And that's why you're with
I
us
haven't had
now, right?
any
Yeah.
time for myself at all. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I came
Oh,
to Vancouver to pick up this vehicle, and when I come home, Ray is going to be back in Penticton, and that's his
mhm.
dying wish. So I'm again going down
Yeah.
under, and you won't hear from me probably, hopefully, for not that long. And I hope to put some weight on Ray and keep him going
Yes.
to the end of the
Carmen,
year.
give him my wishes too, please. Hey.
Gosh, I'll
Yeah.
take it everyone's prayers, you know
Yeah.
how that
Absolutely.
collective thought works. But sometimes it's just your time, and I've felt it. That's why I blocked my whole month of August
Yep.
already, and
Right.
I'm preparing myself.
Yep.
But it also will liberate me to be able to really focus, and it will actually be his dying wish for me to focus on this. And my other point about Jean Manning was she asked me to actually take over her reins, Eddie.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Wow.
As a technical writer in
Oh
this
my
field,
that
there
well
is no,
you are the actual would be the one. Yeah, because who
well,
else can do it,
that's actually,
right?
huge shoes to fill on top of the ones I'm already trying to fill.
No kidding. So
Uh,
it'd be really cool to get Gene on a show with us or something, Carmen,
I'm
too.
sure we can do that. Like I said, I did block August. I do plan on being having a little more time to myself. Most of the time when Ray's there, he's just asleep upstairs, at the lake, and I do have some extra time.
In that
Both,
beautiful lake house right on the lake.
yes, and both of my kids are going to Europe for 3 weeks, so I will have really some uninterrupted me time.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, right now I'm
Cool.
overlooking English Bay. Last night I watched the celebration of light fireworks. Were insane.
No way.
A
Oh my
drone
God.
show. Yeah, I don't know if I can share pictures or anything here, but
For people that don't know, Vancouver is considered the most beautiful city in the world.
one of them, yes,
One
no
of them. Yeah.
question, yeah.
Yeah.
And right, I'm really overlooking, like as if you were looking over the ocean. I don't know. Can I
You're
send?
in that beast right now?
I'm at the apartment on the
Oh,
penthouse at the penthouse.
okay. Cool.
Overlooking English Bay and all the ocean liners and the boats. And last night there was literally a procession
Wow.
of thousands of boats coming in out of the harbor,
No
like
way.
from watching the fireworks. It was a sea of people. 400,000 people came to downtown Vancouver for the
Holy
fireworks.
cow. That apartment, that's Ray's apartment in Vancouver?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yep, yep, gotcha. Yep. Wow.
The
Well,
lake house
cool.
is his too. I've been very
Yeah,
blessed by Ray. So yes, I do think I'll be able to take the Tesla Motor Show on the road in the coming
awesome.
year. and visit some. ChatGPT gave me literally hundreds of resources of who to contact and what to
Oh,
say and letters to write. And oh my God, it was so detailed.
oh, that's
I said
amazing.
to Jean, okay, I kind of went down a rabbit hole there. I tried to get you just like a 800 word or less article, and I ended up with about 800 pages of what to do next.
That's cool though. That's cool though,
It
right?
really is because
Destined.
ChatGPT took all my research and then gave me every citation for everything that I cited and gave me all my
Wow.
references, everything, and
That's cool.
corrected anything and gave me, avenues to explore and auction houses and oligarchs and Tesla uh, communities. Like
Yeah,
it's just the list is such a
insane.
mind-boggling tree branch of where I could go next. Um,
And
it's
and,
going
and
to take, if I drive down the road with the QR code that says Quest for Tesla with a real story of who Tesla is. People think when I say
correct.
the first Tesla motor, they right away go to the Tesla cars and think, what the fuck? Who cares about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And
Yep.
even that would be a cool thing if we did have the very first Tesla car motor. That would be a something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that is. Maybe still in that
His
Tesla number
partners have
one.
them. His partners have them. I
Well, they
watched the show
were
on it.
they
I think
were originally two guys from California that
that's yeah.
started the Tesla Motor Company,
Yep.
and then he took it over in a reverse takeover, from what I understand.
Yep.
But like I said, I have to really, before I uh, go on the road with my show. I have to wrap the vehicle. I have to set up a website. So there's lots to do. I invite
That's
whoever
cool.
wants to help to participate. There, may be some profit sharing in the end if we have those kind of numbers. And those kind of numbers were what I was hoping for, so I can give back to the community at large and decide myself, like I have in the past, as a kind of a technology finder,
Yep.
and having been a little bit like the dragons in our lives where we have, we used to give Brian Desborough money. There's so many people in the past, and I
Hmm.
remember you just in this article about John, you mentioned Elizabeth Rauscher. Now, Elizabeth Rauscher was also part of the Society for Scientific Exploration. Like all of this stuff comes to me as soon as you guys start talking about all these names. I get like a
Cool.
download, and all of
That's
it,
awesome.
unless I have a receptive audience that's asking provoking questions, it doesn't come up in my general, what I should talk about with you guys until we actually have the conversation, and then it just flows. It all just,
Yeah. Well, it's destined. I mean, I got contact with him, direct contact with him last night, and we're
I
doing
was
a
going to
show with
mention
him.
that to you. Like you said, John is live now. I was like, just ask him, but you read my mind, so that's good. Like
Yeah.
I said, I've been just so busy, and I haven't had a chance. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of who's doing what over the last little bit and what you guys have been accomplishing, which has been really groundbreaking and huge, Eddie, I must say.
Yeah.
The
Thank
little
you.
engine that could, you guys. And Brendan, you too, for spearheading everything. And
Definitely.
congratulations also in order to Ed for his honorary doctorate again.
Mm.
Just to mention that.
Yeah. Well,
I told
actually, no,
Eddie, I
nobody
need
knows
one of
about
those.
that.
Where do I get one of those?
Nobody knows about it.
Whose palms do I have to grease for one of those? No, I'm
So,
kidding.
so
But
I'll just say this because nobody knows about it, Carmen.
oh,
I'll just say that it was an honor to have Brendan give me an honorary doctorate in. I think I'm the first person to ever get a doctorate in subquantum kinetics, EVO, and anti-gravity propulsion. Now, it was just kind of a little bit more of like a joke thing or whatever. I don't think it's an
sure.
official thing, but it is,
Sure. It's
it's
just a
awesome.
recognition, Eddie. It's to
Yeah.
recognize you amongst us as you know a profound thinker. So
Mm, like it.
we appreciate you, no question. And
And I
like I said,
appreciate you too. Oh
what
my
you guys
God.
have brought together is quite remarkable, and
Uh,
the
it's Chris
testimony
Beskar.
is there for everyone now.
Chris Beskar, it's because he gave me Ken Schroeder's research, right? I just went with it
Yep.
from that point. It's like getting handed the golden key. Like here it is. It's almost like your Tesla motor, you know?
And it's almost like what's in the basement. Like I said, Eddie,
Yes.
that I
Yes.
remember sitting with Eric Wilson from Aeronautical Aerospace. he
Yep.
he was thumbing through my papers and he came across one letter from John, which I know I have on the table downstairs, kind of loosely, uh, on the top of the pile on the table. I was showing the guys that were all there. It was one of the items I made sure I had out, but
Wow.
I'm not sure that Bob actually looked at it or anyone commented on it actually.
Is that
Um,
something you can share with us at
I
some point?
can and I will. Please
Yeah,
remind me.
I
But
will.
I
I will.
remember Eric
I'll
going,
hound you.
"Oh my God, this is the letter. This is the letter. This is gold." He said, "Do not lose this letter." So I know it has some real tidbits of information in there, and
Very
that
cool.
reminded me I wanted to say that. But I wanted to finish my thought on that I had allowed Wayne O'Hala to take the Mark II generator
Yep.
to Victoria here, which is in fairly close proximity to me.
Hmm.
And he got it running over Unity.
Oh my God, really?
Yes,
That's
he has a
amazing.
shitty bearing, so he has to re and re that right now. That's his limitation.
Ceramic bearing without a is the best one without a seal. C3. Ceramic is way, way, way better than anything else. That's what they use in the bearings for Indy cars and Formula One and everything.
Yeah, I know we used precision bearings when Eric and I had to re and re it, and
Yeah,
I neglected to find the actual box or model number that Eric and I sourced about 7 years ago when
yeah,
we had a growl in the machine. So all we had done, like all I have done to my dad's original prototype
yep.
was re and re the bearings and update all the electronics from my dad's old brittle original
Is
design that I
is that
had
the
as a
machine
line
that we
drawing.
is that sorry to interrupt, is that the machine that we ran the day after my 50th birthday at your
Yes,
house? Okay.
yes.
Yep, totally.
But then
That's
since
amazing.
then, I had a flood in my basement
I
and
remember, yeah.
COVID happened. And
Hmm.
so now I have that machine sitting in my basement. All the components are there and it's not running because, well, of course, now the electronics are also a little bit no longer state of the art.
Hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was only running on one original channel.
I
But
saw, yeah, I
on one
remember that.
channel,
Yeah.
remember, we were running two solar charge panels
Yep.
and a bank of batteries. And we were self-running and
Yep.
nothing got hot. And that
Yep.
was on one channel. And my dad had typically run it on 3 to 5 because he didn't ever have money to fully populate it.
Do the whole 16. There's 16, isn't there?
That's correct. 16, 15. So that's my dad's, big secret is the odd
And
even, and it has no rotor lockup, no zero torque required to move that
yeah,
magnet from point A to point B, which
and I
is
and I think if I remember talking to your dad, it had between like 350 and 400 horsepower if it was
correct.
all correct.
Correct.
Yeah, 16.
Well,
Yeah,
it
everything was
already
there.
did at three phase.
No way.
Yes, it did. Yes. It was
It's
already producing 35 kW, maybe at the 5, but for sure at the
wow.
5, but possibly even at the 3.
That's amazing. Yeah. Um,
You can't stop that machine. It runs at about 1750 RPM. And, with the flywheel effect, it
yep.
freewheels for a long time afterwards. And you're producing that
Yep.
whole time. So we're constantly turning it on and off, turning it on and off, turning it on and off.
Yep.
And we're only giving it a tiny tick at top dead center. So
Yep.
we're really not doing very much work to produce every time we're ticking at top dead center. The
Do you know
rest of
that?
the time we're motoring.
Do you know that the
We're
farmers?
regenerating. We're motoring only for at top dead center, and then we're generating the rest of the
Yeah.
revolution.
The farmers back in the day had these things called pop motors, and they would do the same thing. They would have a really heavy flywheel, and you get it going, and then they would only fire, the fuel and every at certain times at top
Yeah.
dead center,
Yeah.
only when needed, essentially, right?
Right.
And it just went away, and nobody ever knew about it. It was back in the 30s and 20s and stuff, right? I remember those because we're from farmers. That's where I come from. My grandparents were farmers that came over originally from Ukraine way back in the day.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we're still recording, so do we want to keep talking or do we want to finish the recording now?
Oh, whatever you like. I'm glad I have gotten a chance to kind of catch up with you guys, and
Yeah.
half of
Yeah.
it's now for the record. So
Yeah, definitely.
again,
and again, Carmen and I are going to be together on August 9th on MES YouTube channel, which is Math Easy Solutions with Matthew and John. I can hardly wait to meet him, actually. Yeah. We went back and forth a bunch last night. He watched a whole bunch of the Stavati Aerospace stuff. So now he knows the connection between Ken Shoulders and Chris Beskar. And he's very excited about everything that he saw, which is fantastic, right? That was what I wanted. So, yeah.
Fabulous, Eddie. Another feather in your hat.
Yeah.
Well, it will be when we get her in the can, anyways.
Yeah, like I said, I'd really like to have an interview with John. Maybe even get him in this Sunday group, or even just do an interview on Technology Envoy with him on that paper that he wrote. If he's willing to do that, we'll have to talk to him about that.
I'm going
Um,
to give a little plug here also for anybody who might be considering going to Egypt. I have a
yes.
I have a potential that I'll put another tour together within, the next year or two, depending on what politically happens down there.
Yep. Wow.
There's been so much disclosure happening that some of the people that are doing the disclosure have kind of shuttered the doors for us on some of the sites because
Oh.
they've accessed them without permission, and then they've
Ooh.
realized that certain
Yeah.
anyways, it's not as easy to access some of the sites, because so we're just going to wait till things cool down a little bit and see where things go. But I did want to mention that Eric Wilson built a hotel in Egypt near Saqqara,
Oh, wow.
and it's called the Stargate Retreat.
That sounds cool. Wow. And for people that don't know, I remember asking Carmen one day how many times she had been in the King's Chamber, and her reply was, well, this one day I was in there, I think you said over a dozen times or
Yeah,
something.
about 12 times. Yes.
When you were setting up the plates, when they did the muon work
Scanning. Yes.
scanning, and you know who's the guy?
Well, the director of the Giza Plateau and the Scan Pyramids project's name is Hamada Anwar,
Hmm.
and he allowed us graciously to it was kind of a cross pollination of people and ideas, and the technicians and the researchers that were running that whole program actually ran into a difficulty with one of their cables that Eric was able to fix.
Wow.
And yeah, we were gophering back and forth, shuttling parts and pieces and helping them kind of in an impromptu situation, but by
Wow.
divine intervention. And yeah, of course, we had already had a relationship with Hamada, and he has helped facilitate much of the research that Chris has been able to do, and he
Kristen.
works
Yeah.
close. Yeah, he works also closely and relies on some of the interpretation of that via another Arabian or an Egyptian engineer named uh, uh, Anwa. No, wait a minute. Edley. Mar, I'll have to put his
Yeah.
name in there, but he's
Yeah.
uh, Ahmad Edley, pardon me. He is an Egyptian engineer that has basically translated Chris's work and
Oh.
republished it in Egypt.
Oh, wow.
And so
Okay.
now it's been starting to, within the last, I would say, only 2 years, starting to infiltrate the upper echelons of and younger engineers in Egypt. It's
Okay.
starting to inspire them
Very
and
cool.
change their way of thinking.
Yeah, their outlook, and yeah.
Yes,
I
so
can remember.
we could get a few seeds planted and a paradigm shift happen by virtue of the fact that it is now published in the Egyptian language, and for other cultures to be able to interpret, especially their own culture, to realize, oh, that's a whole new idea than what they've been,
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
led to believe. So
I remember in the spring of 2019 that you asked me to go to Egypt with you and Chris on that one tour, and I
yeah,
just
the
wasn't
last
able to
time.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Eddie, we would have carried you, man.
And Peru, we were going to go to Teotihuacan and Peru before that. Do you remember we were talking about that with Chris years before that
Yes, yes,
when
that's
Chris
been
got
was
sick
where
and
he wanted to go one more time. Um he wanted to go mostly to Pumapunku,
yep,
and
yep,
yeah, that's
yep. And
where he wanted to do his final research.
and for
But
those that don't know, Chris Dunn has written books, and maybe you can describe them, and you know
Chris
better.
has written the Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, the Giza Power Plant Theory, and the Tesla Giza Connection.
And the middle one was on Ancient Aliens, and Chris has been on there as well too, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Of course, they always kind of um, don't project what you're trying to convey in your own words. They kind of chop it all up for their own narrative. So,
Yeah.
it's aliens, but it's not aliens. And, of course, the evidence, the tool marks, and now the precision engineering and the work that Ben Van Kerkwyk has been doing with Chris, which was actually spearheaded by Chris Dunn's son.
Oh,
Um, yes,
wow.
Alex Dunn,
Yeah.
and also by Adam Young. Adam Young was somebody who was a collector in New York who had also come to Egypt with us. Now,
Yeah.
I believe that was a different year, let's say maybe 2017, I think. And Alex had come with us, and so did Adam Young, joined the tour.
Wow.
And then Adam had said, hey, I bought from some antiquities dealers in New York these, pre-dynastic vases. And at
Wow.
that time, of course, Alex had started getting more interested in his dad's work and had joined the tour. And he has really come out like a real, well, his idea was to do the metrology
Yeah.
with aerospace engineers.
Which is
And
measuring for those who don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the symmetry and the precision of those pre-dynastic vases shows that we have had advanced machinery, and
Hmm.
that they really knew what they were doing. This is diorite, this is basalt, these have handles with holes in them. Yeah, that has to all be removed.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the machine tool marks sometimes have a feed rate that exceed the level of accuracy that we're able to accomplish
Yes,
even
and Chris
today.
Chris is basically a master machinist, and that's what I am too. And he's also is he a technologist? I can't remember his
No,
um
he worked at Danville Machine for many years. Is
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
a machinist, yes, an engineer.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and yeah, so anyways, it's been quite an evolution of Chris's work since I would like to say he started collaborating with some other researchers. Uh, uh, Robert, wait a minute, sound engineer Robert Bouter.
Hmm.
He contributed to Chris's book, and also the earthquake lights guy. Oh, it'll come to me. Um, Oh, I see his face. Friedemann Freund. Robert Wouter worked with Friedemann Freund, and he was studying earthquake lights around the world. And
Hmm.
uh, Robert Wouter was a sound engineer in for many famous bands.
Okay.
And he sadly passed away a couple of years ago after we had returned from Egypt. But I think Chris has really quantum leaped and really left his mark for future researchers to build a solid foundation on his work
Yeah.
and really build on the legacy that he has created. So while Chris is still alive, I really would like to honor him in this moment and
It
say thank you again to Chris for
is he?
everything that he's done for everyone
Yeah.
and the books that he's written and the time he spent in his own lifetime to accomplish this is really a feat that no one else has accomplished, and he has done a remarkable job. Sometimes it's a bit of a dry read for some people that want quick answers. Chris is very detailed,
Yeah.
and most people can actually appreciate that about him when they meet him. And
Is Chris going to be like this next trip to Egypt? Is he going to be on that or?
no, I think he's really considering going again to Egypt. And I really hope and pray that he will be able to lead one more tour, or at least go himself for
Yeah.
another research tour without the pressure of a tour on him. That's
Hmm.
unfortunately how most of these researchers have always had to do. All of their research was, kind of under the blanket of a tour, to be able
Yep.
to try and do research and share information with hopefully some smart people that sometimes attend these tours because they have questions too. And that's why we've had with Mohammed Ibrahim of Saba Tours, we've had very successful lost technology tours. And I do
Yep.
encourage anyone that is interested in that to either tour with Mohammed or to tour with Yusuf Awiyan. And Yusuf is the son of Hakim Abdel Abyan. I hope I said that right. And yeah, Hakim was the indigenous wisdom keeper of the Giza Plateau. Um,
Wow.
and he swam in front of the pyramids before the Nile shifted, I think, or
Yep.
at least close by. And he had been in all the tunnels, and he had heard all the stories. He was the indigenous wisdom keeper, and in
Yep.
fact, it was Ray's son who had done a documentary,
I remember you talking
and
about this. Yeah.
unfortunately, it was never published. But he had actually brought David Icke to Canada, to Vancouver, BC.
Oh wow.
I would say, I think in the early 2000s, I'm going to say,
No way.
or
Wow.
pardon me, I'm going to say it was like 1998, actually, because in 1999 was when Wayne went to Egypt and was commissioned he had a contract with the Discovery Channel to
Hmm.
produce, I think, a series of 10 documentaries about Egypt and maybe other megalithic sites. But he
Yep.
started out with, and he cut and finished the first episode, which when I first met Ray, he gave me because he
Hmm.
knew that my parents' stuff had stuff to do with Egypt, of course, from being in my house and looking
Yep.
through my dad's paperwork.
Yep.
And then, kind of, was sad because he had lost his son. His son did die tragically after he came home
That's right.
from
Yeah.
doing that documentary and
Yep.
died during production.
Wow.
And those were never released for public consumption. And so I ended up with one of the first edited copies and some of the original footage that was never put into the documentary.
Wow.
And that was something that sort of was in a closet in some boxes that Ray had, and he had put to bed, sort of, so to speak, until I went to Egypt and I was having a bit of deja vu while I was sitting
Hmm.
on the balcony across from the Giza Plateau
Yep.
watching this light show with no one in the bleacher seats in front, but this light show's going off and this cacophony of four different languages of the story of the Great Pyramid and King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, Sphinx. I don't know what they were all saying. It was just
Yeah.
kind of
Wow.
muffled in the background. But I was realizing that I was having a bit of deja vu, and I had seen that vantage point before. And then I remembered
You
that it
told me
was
about
in
this
that
before. Yeah.
documentary that
Yep.
Ray's son had produced. So remember, he brought David Icke to Vancouver
Yep.
for this big seminar. I think 600 or 800 people attended. And then he took David Icke to Egypt with a film crew and they interviewed Hakim.
Wow, that's
And I
amazing.
realized when I went on tour with Chris, which was the most organic way that I actually ended up on tour with Chris, I had actually called David Hatcher Childress.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you know him. Yeah, yeah,
yes, and
yeah.
he, from Ancient Aliens, he's the guy with
He,
all the elongated vowels who says what's
yeah, and
going
the
on
glasses
here.
and yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
he looks like a bit of Indiana Jones.
yeah.
Anyways, you can always tell by the way he talks. And I called him, and he had written a book about my dad called, or my
What?
dad and a bunch of others called The Free Energy Handbook, The Free Energy Guidebook. I know Don Kelly wrote one,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
didn't know that.
there's
Okay, I need to
similar
get
art.
that.
Yes, and
Yes.
it's also in German, um, available in German. I have both copies. So, anyways, David wrote that book, and I when after my dad died, I contacted him and I said, after my kids were a little bit older and I had a little bit of time, I contacted him and I said, "Oh, would you be interested in like co-authoring or writing a something, helping me with writing a book about my dad, or are you interested in that?" And he
Hmm.
said, I'm not, but I do know that Christopher Dunn is working on
Oh, yeah.
the Coral Castle motor of Edward Leeds Scanlon. And
Yes.
it's also a Sweet 16 rotor
Yes, it
motor.
is.
And
Definitely.
so, yeah, built on the basis of an old Ford alternator, which my dad has also in the basement, an old crank one, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
I know another guy in Germany who kind of replicated that too successfully. Anyways, he's been around at the Adolf and Inge Schneider conferences for some
Cool.
of, maybe I think we have a German Bernd on here or something. I can't remember. One of our members.
Yeah, yeah. If
Um,
he's not always here, but yet definitely
right, if
brought,
he's
I
watching
think.
this
Yeah.
down the road. But yeah, where was I?
Yeah, so
Anyways,
Chris Dunn. And one thing I wanted to say about Egypt was that Elena Denon worked for Zahi Hawass for 8 years, and she did the hieroglyphics. She drew them first, but she also was deciphering them as well. So, and I know her, so she's
yes.
kind of got a connection to Egypt as well.
But you guys also got to check out the work of John Stewart Reed recently. He's really been, I mean, his original work has also been referenced in Chris's books as well. But um, the work that he's doing and bringing out now and what's coming out on these reels and TikTok and Facebook and wherever else,
Yeah.
they're really educational, and lots of people, I've noticed people come up to me and go, "Oh, hey, did you hear about this stuff?" And the guy put a membrane across the sarcophagus in the king's chamber, and played different musical solfeggio frequencies, and
Oh, wow.
hieroglyphs appeared in the
Wow.
membrane with of
That's,
course, like a Chladni plate, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
That's
cymatics.
cymatics. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a study of the shape of sound.
And since we're talking about the King's Chamber, you shared a little short. It was slowed down. You were in the chamber. What do you call that thing? Because I don't call it like calling it a sarcophagus. It's not. It's a
Well, the granite box, we call it in the
resonant. It's
King's
a
chamber.
resonant chamber. But I asked Carmen what it felt like, and then she showed me this thing, and you can see her vibrating. I mean, she said it vibrated you. Explain, please. And how many
Oh
times
my
have you been in
God,
there?
time stood still in there.
Oh my,
Time literally
wow.
stood still, and I felt an out of body experience being in that granite box in the
Wow.
King's Chamber. And then other people were toning while we were in there.
Oh,
And they were also jumping on a plank in the Grand Gallery, so that we actually, everyone heard. We did it a few times. But you could hear that actually through the whole pyramid into the subterranean. And going in the
it resonated
subterranean,
all the way through it. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
and you guys who have, if you haven't done that, go do a virtual tour of the Great Pyramid, and just, or watch somebody else's videos of going either down the subterranean or up the Grand
Oh,
Gallery
can
or
you share that
into.
with us in the group, the backstage
Well,
or the
I would
signal?
just suggest, go on YouTube and find some, just search that, tour of the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid,
Okay.
or, virtual tour, or not even
Right.
virtual,
Virtual.
but, be someone's, fly
Yep.
on their shoulder, and just somebody will have videotaped it, because it used to be, even when I was going, I have my own footage that I can share, but the files are huge and they're on my computers and I don't have them on my phone. Really, I do have some, and I
I
could
would
share
love to
them, but
see that thing that you showed me. Remember that?
that slow-mo one.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that was really weird. So Chris, or not Chris, Eric took that video of me in slow motion coming out of the
Yep.
granite box, and it was surreal. I'll probably, well, not probably, I'll never forget that. It was like a being reborn.
Yeah,
Hard to put into words, actually.
I know that's why I'd like to see it again, because when I saw it, I could
Yeah,
feel what
you
was
really
going
do
on.
see it on my face, because in
You
slow
do.
motion, you're
Yep.
seeing every nuance of how I wake up and open my eyes and
Yep.
realize I have to get out. So I'm
Yep.
pushing myself off and coming out going, wow.
I know
It was,
it's
I can
amazing.
still feel the goosebumps, and I can almost close my eyes and
It
be immersed right back where I
when
was.
you
It was
showed it to me, I had
like
goosebumps.
drinking, it was like drinking liquid ether, like being back in a womb. Everything was viscous and thick,
Ether, it's
and
the ether,
yes, it was, I have to
right?
say. And then with the toning, it was really, like you said, I was vibrating. It was, yeah, it's like a shaking you can't stop, but not in a bad way. Like
Yep.
not one where you're feeling like you're,
Yep.
like you're traumatized. It was like,
It was
whoa, I just
harmonious.
met God,
Yeah, it was
like that.
harmonious. Yep.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that is actually what
rubbing
you
my
looked like
body.
when you came out of there. Yeah, you
Like
were
you just met with God, or your
the
maker, or
source.
your
Yeah, the
divine,
source.
yeah, divine
Wow.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
very
I guess
cool.
on that note, Eddie, I should start my day, and everyone should go back to the tasks
Yeah,
at
yeah,
hand.
we should probably stop the recording now, but everyone,
Yep.
thank you for being here, and so excited to be with Carmen and John Hutchison in the near future, and we'll be sharing that with you guys.
Thank you,
So this
everyone.
is, yeah,
Have a
Ken
wonderful
Childers
day.
number
Have
30,
a wonderful rest of your
31, I
day.
think. Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
cheers. Take
thanks.
care.
Thanks, guys. Bye, Brendan.
Bye then.
Bye, Eddie.
yeah.